Hello, everyone, and welcome to Game of Bros, yet another Game of Thrones podcast on the internet that you could listen to if you wanted to, and you should. I am one of your hosts, Chris Stashio, and I'm joined once again back from vacation to the Iron Isles. Your friend and mine, Yasharmond Parasta.
You can keep your tongue, Chris.
God, fuck, dude. On this episode of Game of Bros, we're digging once again into the 8th episode of this iteration of Game of Thrones, being House of the Dragons. It's all about the Targaryens and what they've been up to 300 years ago. Yeah. So the episode aired October 9th. It is directed by Geeta Vasant Patel and written by Ellen Shim. And the title of the episode is The Lord of the Tides. Yashar, you were not here last week. You were off cavorting, having a good time on vacation.
I was, I was taking in the French. You know, I've seen the Mona Lisa. And just really seeing how rich people overspent 300-400 years ago, much like in Game of Thrones.
Rich people fighting with each other. Yay.
About Succession. Did you know there's a third Napoleon? I found this out.
So this episode does kind of have to do with Succession because Lord Corlys is very sick and he has been wounded in a battle at the Stepstones. And
you buried the lead. We get another 6-year time jump.
Oh, God in heaven, man. What? We talked to Father Malone and I talked about it last episode, and he was like, there's going to be another time jump. I was like, yes, there is. And boy, and Miguel Sapochnik in the After the Thrones thing was like, well, we had to do it again. And it's like,
got him.
I guess it was Ryan Condal, not Miguel Sapochnik, but he's like, we have to do it again because we really needed to recast the actors. And it's like, bro, you had him cast for like 1 episode, 2, I guess. Like, what?
It makes, yeah.
Okay. I think the time jumps are over now. Maybe. I don't want to speak too soon because I thought we were past it already.
If we get another one, literally Viserys will be the Crypt Keeper.
If we get it there, no, Viserys is dead.
He might be.
No, he's dead.
You think
he's
so?
dead? Yes.
Funeral episode next week.
I mean, he has to be dead at this point, right? Like, what else can they do to the man? Like, Jesus, he's supposed to be a physical representation of the poison that has kind of infested his family's line, the secession poison. The poison of inheritance has kind of soured and destroyed his entire reign as king. And at this point, it's just like, how is he actually still alive?
Yeah, he's lived a lot longer than we would have expected.
We've seen characters die from less in Game of Thrones than this guy has, and he's literally at this point fallen apart. I mean, in the book Fire and Blood, which you should totally check out, there are characters that die from like their appendixes exploding, and here he is like his eyeball is gone. He has sores. He looks like that guy that's tied to the bed in Seven.
Dude, I haven't seen the movie in forever. I don't remember what it looks like, but
it's the guy that was tied to the bed that Kevin Spacey's character was like taking care of and like hanging like air fresheners. The guy who's strapped to the bed that's like looks like a corpse. That's like alive. That's like alive. And like John C. McGinley's like, God, he's like, you deserve what you get, motherfucker. And then the guy goes, and like wakes up. That's what he looks like. Kudos to the CG team because a lot of it is CG, but a lot of it also has to go to the practical effects team because they made Paddy Considine look fucking disgusting.
So does this put to bed the Viserys Sauron rumors?
Right. It's leaked over into this show. God, thank God there's none of that with this show, huh? Like we haven't talked about it a lot on our podcast of Power because I don't feel like it's worth really conjecturing, but dude, the amount of like who is Sauron on that show is just annoying.
Yeah.
The fact that the speculation is like taken over, even like just discourse about the show, seems to be kind of missing the point.
You know what the difference is? We have who is the Triarchy. Once again, we hear so much about them. Who the fuck are the Triarchy?
Well, it's the folks that are over at the Stepstones who Lord Corlys, I guess, went to fight again. Like,
do you want to do a quick recap of the episode?
Yeah, so Corlys Velaryon is injured. There's this huge issue of who is taking his place at
if he dies.
If he dies at the Driftmark. And so you have his brother, Vaemon Velaryon, making his case. Then you have Rhaenyra making her case. And then you have Daemon killing Vaemon Velaryon because he's called his wife a whore and their sons bastards. Which I feel like he should have expected something like that was going to happen.
I mean, that
you expected something like that to happen, right?
I was like, Daemon has to be the stupidest character we've seen. Like,
short of Ned Stark season 1, yes.
No, like
he's an idiot. Like, why are you so dumb?
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen? Like, yeah. What did you think was going to happen if you call the princess of the king a whore in front of everybody? And her husband is Daemon Targaryen. Like, what?
And you call the kids bastards after it was a whole like thing, and like it's like no one wants really you to take this. Like Rhaenys doesn't really want you to do it. Corlys has already said what his wishes are. Yeah, that scene was wild because I was like, this guy, like,
he's acting like a real clown.
Yeah, but once again, Daemon, we spent like all of 3 scenes with him. He seems kind of like a jackass.
Yeah, we spent like no time with him whatsoever throughout the entirety of the show, right?
Yeah.
So far, we've had the scene with him and Laenor and Corlys in the Stepstones, where they're kind of starting to kind of strategize the fight. And then, he's just been kind of like a background character.
Yeah. I think he was at the funeral for Laenor.
Yeah, but like...
Yeah.
I don't know. I look, again, like with a lot of things, the Fire and Blood book throws a lot of characters at you similarly to the way this show does. And a lot of them are not important. And I don't even remember him from the book. Like, I don't remember what happens to him in the book. All I can tell you is this is probably another opportunity for the show to kind of stray away from the source material and not and kind of take a stand. I mean, in the book, Rhaenyra has him killed. Daemon killed.
It's
by Daemon.
I actually read this thing in it online, and they were discussing some of the difference between the book and the show, and it's like they are making an effort to. I mean, Rhaenyra's not the best person, but sort of in the conflict between her and Alicent to delineate like who we probably should be rooting for, and I think they're making Rhaenyra a bit less malicious and conniving than she is in the book, where she seems like she was just as ruthless as Alicent. Whereas in this one, like things like Laenor actually gets to live, and like the thing with Vaemon is not her, it's Daemon.
But in the book, it's still Daemon, but he is operating on the
under her
command. Yeah.
I
don't know how I feel. I again, as someone who's now read the book, I feel like the whole idea of making Rhaenyra a more likable character than she needs to be. I appreciate it from a need.
It makes it a little easier.
Yeah, but Tony Soprano was not a nice guy. Like, I don't understand. Who cares in 2022? Walter White, was not a good guy. He was a bad guy. You know what I mean? Like, that's why do we care if we have to be able to root for the characters on this show? Why can't we just revel in how terrible they're treating one another? It's like Always Sunny. It's no different in a lot of ways.
I agree with you. I would say in the difference between those things is like Walter White was compared to someone like Gus or the Cartel, who are like far worse. So it's not like
still terrible though. Still terrible. Still a drug dealer. Still killed people.
It's not like Rhaenyra is a good person, but it's like relative to Alicent.
But that's my point. Like, I just don't care if she's relatively not a good person or a bad person. She's a Targaryen. She married her brother. She's fucking insane. Uncle. She's fucking insane. She is. They all are, though. Like, Viserys is his own special breed of insane. He's sitting there while his entire family is falling apart going, I love everybody and I hate to see us all fight and let's all be friends. It's like, dude, are you out of your mind? Yes. Yes, you are. Yes, you are, actually. And you must be.
I think the scenes where we had, well, I guess do we want to finish recapping because we just did like half the episode?
Sure. And so the rest of the episode is just another dinner scene that's immensely uncomfortable with Viserys
Targaryen.
Boy, God, might as well be. Viserys at the head of the table and everybody shooting barbs at one another, getting angry. And again, I feel like setting up, like, this is the Cold War here. This is a Cold War going on at this table, and we're about to see the true, actual lives in the balance civil war that is coming. The Dance of the Dragons is coming. I mean, that's what this whole show is building to, is Daemon Targaryen flying around on a dragon, fighting people, Aemon flying. I mean, that's what we're here for. That's what the whole rest of the show is. That's what you're here for, is the conflict between the houses of the Targaryen family. And you see where you can see kind of where the pairings are going to be for the conflict in this episode, specifically in this dinner scene.
Yeah. And there's a couple other like small nuggets. There's, Daemon's ex-lover, she kind of pops up out of nowhere.
Yeah, she's the master of whispers, essentially.
Yeah, and then there's also,
which they did say that was her job. I mean, they said that was who she was even when he was with her to begin with. They just didn't show anything because, again, it didn't seem to matter.
And it's been like 10 plus years since we've seen her in the context of the show.
Yeah, sure.
And then there's the scene, the sort of like Me Too scene where Alicent basically, like, you find out like Aegon's just gone, like, he goes from kind of just like disinterested brat to pure just unbridled asshole, him and his brother. Like, I don't really get it because Alicent seems like she'd be a good mom, but maybe she's not the greatest mom. I don't know what's going on.
Aemon is just a terror.
Aemon's a terror. And also somehow, even though he's younger than Aegon, he looks like 35.
Can we talk about that, please? Like, it's supposed to be 6 years in the future. He's in his 30s now.
The dude is like the guy that comes from overseas, transfers into the high school basketball team, and he's like 25 and everyone else is like 16. And like, I'm like, this dude, yeah, Aegon's an asshole. I guess Helena's just into bugs and stuff, and she's fine.
She's weird. She's Aegon's. Like, she's Aegon's sister wife, is what she is.
Her character is just, her personality is just weird, like,
right,
sweet and weird. We know nothing about her other than she's
very Luna Lovegood, right? Like, yeah, and it's and her character is as such in the book. Like, she's kind of not given as much attention in the book because, again, it's more just like, she's just kind of weird and aloof. But Aemon the Targaryen, baby.
I mean, but Aegon rapes a girl and it gets like, and he's just like, oh, I do everything you want me to do, mom. And it's like, I mean, yes, you married your sister. That sucks. But in the context of the show, I don't think asking him not to like sexually assault chambermaids is asking too much.
It is of the king's son. It is of the king's son.
His mom basically calls him out on it too. One thing I actually found interesting is we've never seen Viserys directly interact with his sons outside of the context of a larger family. Like, we have no idea what that relationship is like. And I guess that would maybe help me understand how his kids end up as fucked up as they are. Like, it's not like Rhaenyra is the most stable person and Daemon's chilled out, but like her kids are actually like relatively, like, for this time period, like, cool, fine. Like, if your kids turn out like Jace and Luke so far, you'd be generally content with that. Whereas like Aemon and Aegon are just like,
because they're Targaryens. I mean, I think my issue with this show and the narrative overall.
Rhaenyra's kids are Targaryens too. They're not Valerians.
But they're not full blooded. They're not full blooded Targaryen. Well, I guess
neither are Aegon.
Yeah, neither are his. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, again, I think a lot of my issues with this first season of the show are going to come back to something that you just mentioned, which is I wish there was more of X, and now we're not going to get it. You know why? Because Paddy Considine's character is dead. So now there's no more opportunities for that, and they gave us a 6-year time jump. They couldn't have really. I am a little chuffed at the show for not giving us enough time to let the fucking narrative breathe, man. It like at some point it felt like the show just is, instead of showing us their everyday lives, it's showing us the greatest hits, the most important things.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we had to see Aemond getting his eye taken out because he had to lose the eye to get the dragon. And oh, we had to see the funeral of Laena at Driftmark with all of them there, because that's one of the, that's when Aegon and Aemond, kind of start asserting themselves as real assholes. And then Aemond loses his eye. At some point, the show has to slow down here and give us a time to fucking understand what are these characters' motivations. Because, Aemond looks like an adult. He looks as old as Matt Smith. Like, oh my, they look the same.
He's supposed to be like a parallel to Daemon, right? Like, he's like, I am the new Daemon. But like, he looks, because you do see him like fighting Kristen, and like he's essentially Kristen's equal, and we know Kristen beat Daemon, and Daemon's a great warrior, and he kind of like bucks up to him we'll get to the dinner scene, but like, it was a little jarring, especially as he is the younger brother, and like he's actually supposed to be probably kind of similar in age to, is Jace the older one?
Yes.
And honestly, their names confuse the fuck out of me.
Their names aren't going to matter until the second season of this show at this point.
But my point is, like, there's not a big gap between Rhaenyra's oldest child and Aemond, but like he's like 3 times his size.
He looks like an adult. He's a fully formed man. Like it, and this is 6 years. Was he 15 in the last episode? Like, I don't understand, because
he's on that trend.
Yeah, it's this time jump, I think, is the most egregious one, right? Like, it's
just because the casting is a bit confusing. Like, I mean, the actor's doing a good job, but it just was jarring.
And also, I mean, it feels like now that the whole time jump casting is to serve 2 things: to get these young kids grown up and to get their young kids grown up. Because now we've seen 2 people grow up. We've seen
2 generations. Yeah.
2 generations grow up. It feels like to get those people grown up and then to show Viserys falling apart. Because it's like, what are we going to see now with Viserys when we come back to him? Like, what's he going to look like now? And now he's literally a ghoul, a literal ghoul, a literal zombie person. Like, he's alive in a world where, like I said before, he is alive in a universe where, like, things like this do happen, but people, like, again, people die from a lot less than what this guy is being put through. And like, I don't remember. I mean, I do. Let me take this back. In the book, not a lot of this stuff is given direct, like, explanation. Does that make sense? And so, like, in the book, I don't think they were like, and he's completely like a disgusting ghoul of a human. But like he does get sick at the end because of the Iron Throne, but he's not like a zombie. He's a literal zombie. Like, I mean, is short of, eating brains. He has an eye socket that's gone. Well, not gone, but he has an eyeball that's gone. And it's just like this red pulsating eye socket. Like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Yeah. So
it was a little much. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, not like in a bad way, but like, it's just in an unbelievable way. It's like, I have a hard time believing he could still be alive.
Well, I mean, he's basically just under opium, milk of the poppy the whole time. Alicent's kind of redecorated. They've gone full Lord of the Seven, that kind of imagery. She's like religious now, I guess. Not too religious where she won't marry off her children to one another, but, religious enough.
As you do.
As you do. So then I think that what you're talking about with Viserys, I think kind of leads to the most powerful scene. And even though it was probably Viserys at his weakest, he also felt like the most powerful was when he kind of comes in, like that we've seen him, when he has kind of been away from the throne. And we actually learn like mentally he's still there. It's just his body has just totally given up on him. And he comes because Rhaenyra basically says, hey, come defend my son in this thing for Driftmark because, you know,
question of succession once again.
And part of me was a little irritated because I was like, okay, now that we've kind of got the Rhaenyra succession thing agreed on, now we're like looking at another thing. Like it was good tension, but
it's kind of lazy going back to the well already.
Even Viserys comes and he has that very slow walk. It was kind of sweet that Daemon helps him at the end because that was we've talked about this before. Like Daemon really does love his brother in a fucked up way. Like like we've said, he would do anything short of like actually killing his brother, but like he does have this respect for him. And at that moment, he's kind of like, okay, like I'm here for you. And Daemon has chilled out in the time jumps. Like he's not the best guy, but he's definitely less.
He's chilled out, but
yeah,
but he also does decapitate a guy in front of everybody.
But I don't think he would have waited that long in episode 1, is what I'm going to say. Like,
no.
I
think he probably would have killed Vaemond before he even said that his wife was a whore.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying
he let him say it. Like, he let him go there. Like, you know, say what you will about Daemon, but Daemon let that guy bury himself. Like, you know, I'm not saying that killing the guy was the appropriate response, but in this universe, I think it is. Like,
it wasn't. Yeah.
In this universe, that is the appropriate response. As terrible as that sounds, like you said something untoward about the king's daughter, who is royalty, and the heirs to the throne. Like, I don't know what you're expecting to happen.
So then when Viserys goes, he even says, he's like, isn't this like, why are we discussing this settled succession? Like Corlys, it's not Corlys. If it was one thing, it's Corlys is saying, hey, I want to redo it. It's like,
right.
Corlys already said who's taking Driftmark. Like,
yeah,
why are we debating this? And Rhaenys doesn't really want Vaemond to have it. And so it's like the king basically is like, this is unnecessary tension. And, you know, you have Alicent and her father kind of running the kingdom while the king is relatively incapacitated, and they're considering it, you know, at least considering Vaemond's plea. Something I've been thinking about is, you know how everyone's like, oh, and I think it's all been, you know, confirmed with Rhaenyra that the kids are Strongs, but in the show, in the book, they're his kids. Like, it's less. Yeah.
I mean, again, it's obvious here, right? Like.
Yeah, and she kind of said it to Laenor, like, we tried, but it didn't work, and so, like, that's fine. But I'm in the context of the show, they're like, well, you know, it doesn't look anything like Laenor. But then I'm thinking, actually, those kids would be 3/4 white, like, only because Laenor was half white, half black.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
it's the hair. It's the hair.
I know it's the hair, but I'm like, it's actually, if you're just going from the, oh, your kids are white. When I'm thinking, and obviously it's not like they had genetics degrees and stuff back then, but I'm like, it's actually not that unreasonable for her to have white children with Laenor, which is just me being nerdy or whatever. But
children without Targaryen hair is the problem.
But it does happen, as we've seen with Jon Snow and stuff like that. So it's not, and yeah, so
Brian, what the fuck?
So
what the fuck?
I guess
actually, what the actual fuck? It's not a problem. I mean, we know they're his kids. That we know they're Harwin Strong's kids, but like there is realistically no.
There is a reality in which Laenor's kids could possibly look like that. Unlikely, but not impossible.
All of them, though, I think is the problem.
Which I just have found that a little amusing as I've
DNA Ancestry.com hasn't made it to Westeros yet.
Yeah. So. You have the really powerful scene where the king's like basically setting up for Rhaenyra, and he's like, they're settled. And I think we get to the most interesting scene, which was the dinner.
It goes on for a while. It's very uncomfortable. And it's like the scene in the Driftmark episode, the funeral scene, where it's like, there's a lot of stuff going on, but the fact that that's, I think, Ryan Condal and Miguel Sapochnik and everybody working on this show, like, they know how to write these scenes. Maybe they don't know how to get all the stuff in between to work really well, but they know how to write these scenes. And my hope is that in the next season of the show, they find some further talent, like screenwriting talent, to kind of help fill in the gaps. Because right now it feels like you're building a brick wall, but there's clearly spaces in between the bricks, and you need somebody to come in and kind of shore that up, because those scenes are really good. Like the scene at Driftmark last episode, like the funeral scene here, and then, or the funeral scene in that episode, and then the succession question, and then the dinner scene here. Like, they know how to write these scenes. It's just like everything else in between is not. I know this sounds weird, but like, this show is really operating at full strength when all of the cast is on screen together. Is it weird when there's like 30 people in this show?
It's because the show's predicated on all of these like interrelationships being fractured, and we haven't, like, some people like Alicent and Rhaenyra and the King, like, we don't necessarily need to have them in the same room, but like with the kids and stuff, like, we haven't seen a lot of that. No. Or with Daemon's kids with Laena, like, I mean, they're basically window dressing, right?
Yes. So, yeah, pretty much for right now, at least.
So it gets them all in one place. And that scene I found like beautiful and tragic. Like, the King brought his family together and was finally like, listen, like, I need you guys to work for the realm. Like, this is what I need. And there is a brief moment where you see that hope, and you actually do see Rhaenyra and Alicent finally, like, in their own way reconcile. And like, I was like, oh shit, like, I actually had like almost like a little tear. I was like, this is like so nice. And Luke and I think it was Luke, like, gave the toast. And like, as we were saying, Rhaenyra's kids are a bit more well behaved. And even though Aegon's kind of egging him on and saying like, I'm gonna, like, Aegon just gives like no fucks. And
well, he's an asshole. I mean, that's I mean, again, like, I have a hard time when people are writing these scenes in shows where a character's like saying something under his breath loud enough for everybody to hear it.
Like, everyone to heard that. Yeah.
Like, yeah, they're sitting 2 feet across the table from you. You're like, hey, you gotta fuck her, and you're not gonna be able to do it because you're a limp dick. Like, would someone shut this kid up, please? Like, smack him fucking upside the head. Like,
so this is a scene where I think it'd be interesting to kind of have seen that time, because we do know the kids grew up together and were relatively friendly, but we haven't seen the last 6 years.
It feels like this is the first time they're seeing one another in 6 years.
Well, no, I'm not saying that's not right. What I'm saying is, in the interim, has Alicent been kind of like poisoning them against the others? Is it just they're just assholes? Like, we don't see any of that. So that made it a bit difficult for me to understand, you know, where Aegon was coming from. And then like, the parents finally reconciled. So I was like, are the kids like this because the parents are just feeding them poison? Or are they like this just because it's them? Or, you know, we just don't see. And then as soon as the King, because he gets sick, gets taken out and the pig comes in, like, all the goodwill has been built. The kids, well, specifically Alicent and the Viserys' kids, Aemon and Aegon, just like fuck it all up. And then Aemon gets up and just shits on the kids again, his nephews. And it's like, basically like, you're strong, like, in a punny way.
Like again, we're doing this again. Like,
yeah. And they're just like,
at some point they would have, like, okay, question here. Realistically, at some point, would they not give it up? Like,
well, there's no point, because like, at this point, everyone's agreed. It doesn't matter. Like, we are moving this. The King has said this. Alicent's reluctantly accepted it. And at this point, Alicent has wholeheartedly accepted it, because she's like, you know, I wish you could stay, Rhaenyra. Like, you know, let's kind of hang out. And her kids.
I wish Rhaenyra had stayed too.
Yeah, and Rhaenyra, and then her kids are kind of like, nope, fuck it all. And the weird thing is, like, I don't think Aemon's not even in line to be king, so I don't really know. He's just a raging asshole. They're just misanthropes, and Aemon might be like a sociopath, like a legit sociopath.
Aemon or Aegon?
No, Aegon is just like a narcissistic dickhead. I think Aemon's like legitimately like a sociopath. Like, he's just so triggered from the pig. A smirk from a kid just like throws him over the edge.
Well, he lost his eye to one of those kids. So
he said it was a worthy price to pay himself.
Yeah, it was. He has a dragon.
Yeah, so I'm saying, like, he said he would pay them, and even old Ollie is like, we'd pay that price 1,000 times over.
Yeah. Nice to see Rhys Ifans again, yeah?
Yeah.
Not doing much. Just hanging out.
Just getting some checks.
Being a turd in the background.
And then
I guess the question comes back to like, who's running the show? Is Alicent running the show? Is her father running the show through her? Because Viserys isn't running the show anymore.
I think it's a partnership between her and her father. It seems like they're kind of on the same level now, and he trusts her, especially after that speech she gave him last week. And like all the Lord of the Seven stuff, like that doesn't really seem to be Otto's thing. That's, I think, Alicent finding herself, her voice,
finding the Lord of the light.
It's a bit tragic that you had that one moment of peace and then it's just all shattered. And then you have the whole thing at the end of the episode where the king is like mumbling the Aegon thing to her. And I'm like, wait, are they and I'm not sure if it's going to go this way, but is she potentially going to interpret that as like, oh, now he's saying I want Aegon to be the heir, even though he just said I want Rhaenyra to be the heir?
Yes.
And basically one mumbling thing is going to like ruin everything. That frustrates.
Is it supposed to be him talking to Rhaenyra? Because he didn't tell her, right? He didn't tell her.
No. He'd only told Rhaenyra. He'd only told.
Okay, I'm just making sure. Right, which is why they show it in the previously on House of the Dragon. Okay, we talked about this on the last episode. I'm gonna bring it up again here. Stop doing that. Don't give away stuff like that in the trailer. The previous lead up, previously on, where they're like reminding you of something that happened 2 episodes ago. Like, fuck off, show. Like, assume that your audience that is watching the show every week is a little bit smarter than that. Because you remember in Game of Thrones where it was like, on this episode of Game of Thrones, and it showed like a flashback to Jon Snow and Sean Bean talking from the first season in like the 6th season of the show. Like, oh, you mean they're finally going to answer that one thing in this episode? Thanks for giving it away. Like, and it's, I don't know, it's very telegraphed storytelling, especially if you're watching this live, which a lot of people were.
I'm less bothered by that. I understand what you're saying, but like, especially when you have shows plotted as densely as this, like sometimes it's helpful. I mean, they're never going to get someone's always going to be, oh, you told too much or you told too little, or
put some faith in your audience. That's all I'm asking for. That's all I'm asking for. And it doesn't feel like that much. I get they don't think that their audience, I get that they must not have a lot of faith in their audience, given that they've done 7 time jumps in this show. And every time they do a time jump, they have to really pound into our heads who we've been introduced to these characters 3 times each is what it feels like now. And I'm like, I just stop spending time doing character introductions and stuff and give us some worthwhile character interactions, because Viserys is dead and we never got to see Aegon and Aemond have any interaction with him. Like, that's criminal in a way.
Yeah.
The same with Rhaenyra's kids, like Rhaenyra and Daemon's kids. I don't know shit about them. I have not seen them interact with either one of them. Like you said, they are essentially just paper thin plot stand-ins to exist to push the plot forward or to be dragon fodder in the next couple seasons.
Also, like,
I mean, think how many characters in the show are going to be dragon fodder. Like,
well, it's like, are they Rickons? I don't know. We'll find out.
Right. I don't like that. I don't like that about this show, because there are like 30 characters in the show and only 5 of them have been given screen time in a meaningful way. But the other 25 were expected to care about because you showed them a couple times. Like, that is what made the original show bad towards the end of it. It's just like, we don't care about giving you a reason to be invested in the characters. You should just care because it's Game of Thrones. And I don't want to see this show do that. And I don't think it is, but I think the time jumps have kind of made it seem that way, at least to me. The time jumps, I'm sick of them. Like, now I'm really frustrated because the time jump between the last episode and this episode took characters that, like Aemond, that child actor playing Aemond, I would have given another 2 or 3 episodes to him just to see him become. He pulled a Daenerys. He got a dragon, then all of a sudden he's just an unrepentant cocksucker. Like, What?
He gets made fun of once for not having a dragon. Like, I mean, it wasn't nice, but he basically says,
we're supposed to understand this was all happening off screen, don't you know? And it's like, this is a TV show. You have 10 hours here. Like, why are you treating this like it's a sprint when it should be a marathon? This show has at least 1 or 2 more seasons, right? The show can't end next season.
No.
Probably at least 1 more season after that.
Yeah, I would say.
But like, why are you sprinting here? I just don't understand why they're like, oh my God, we got to show everything. We got to get Aemon to age 25 or whatever the hell age he's supposed to be.
But we're going to keep Aegon at 16.
I know, dude. No, the casting in this show with the kids is wild, man. That is an adult. That is a fully grown ass man playing Aemon. Like, he looks more like Matt Smith than Matt Smith does now. Does that make sense? You know, It's like, how do you look more like Matt Smith than Matt Smith does? I don't understand.
The funny thing is also Rhaenyra named one of her new children with Daemon, also Aegon. So my also thinking was like, when the king is singing about Aegon, in the end, I was like, well, could it not be the other Aegon? Like,
it is.
I know,
but Allison doesn't know that.
So I like I said, we don't know yet, but I am going to be a bit frustrated if like all the growth that we saw with Alicent and Rhaenyra just goes to the wayside because of like a king's.
You should read the book.
Accidental. If you
should read the book, you'll find all about it.
Well, no, in the book there is no Song of Ice and Fire, though, right? There is no.
No, like, but again, no. Again, the book, as I explained to Father Malone last week, the book is 1,000 level view of, and the show is like 10-foot view, because we're seeing all the things that are we're seeing things that are just described in the book. Like, and then this happened, and then Viserys died, and then this happened, and then this happened. It's like, those we don't get to see, like Alicent said to Otto, like we don't see any of that. So like, again, and what's interesting, like I mentioned in the last episode, there is some wiggle room for kind of creative interpretation of what happened, given that there are 3 sources that George R. R. Martin is referencing in the history book. So like with Laenor surviving, right? Like that wasn't in the book, but it was kind of in the book. Like there was a thing where it's like, why they never understood why Sir Carl killed Laenor. And now it's like they filled that in, so it makes sense that he didn't actually, right? Like, okay, fine.
He would go off with him, yeah.
Right, but some of this other stuff, it's like Aemond and Aegon in the book, the sons are kind of even then in the book, they're not really given a whole lot to do. Like, I guess they're given more to do than they are here. Aegon and Aemond, like that whole kind of back and forth with the two of them and who's going to be king and which one of them is king, and their relationship, I think, is probably what's going to be the next kind of big relationship that the show mines, is Aegon and Aemond together as brothers. But you know, cast a 30-year-old man to play a teenager. Like, what is this? High School Musical? He just looks so weird compared to everybody else.
I think it would have been better if Aegon was also like a bigger. It's because Aegon is the older brother, and the fact that his younger brother looks so much older than him now is jarring.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
But to your point, it's gonna be interesting to see, like where the king's musings at the end of the episode. With those final words, it's kind of implied it was. I guess not confirmed. We'll find out next episode. And then if that's enough to kind of then break this newfound relationship that Rhaenyra and Alicent have, plus like Alicent's kids just being shitheads generally,
like just miserable,
just like the worst. They are the worst. I mean, I enjoyed the episode
in like a kind of mustache twirling way, almost, like, you know what I mean? Like, the characters in this show, at least the best characters in this show, are written with a fair amount of like, not empathy, but like they're written in a way where you can kind of love to hate them, but you still love them. Like they're setting this guy up to be like Joffrey from the Game of Thrones, right? Just an unrepentant piece of shit. Which, again, I don't know. Like in the book, he's not. In the book, it's more Aegon. I mean, they're both terrible. I think that's. I mean, we'll be seeing that very quickly. But Aemond is okay. Like, I guess, sure, why not? They're being painted very one-dimensionally, and it's kind of a problem. And I can't tell if it's just the show hasn't done enough yet to give us understanding of who their characters are, or if the show is like, well, these are their characters now and they're just mustache twirling villains. Like, please don't be the second. Please be the former.
We're definitely rooting for the strong boys.
Right. Like it's yeah. And that's the thing. It's like in the book, it's not made clear who you should root for. It's kind of like, again, it's kind of where you come down on this question of succession. In this, it's like, no, they're baddies. Like,
yeah,
not even any question. Like, they're literally sitting there going, hey, bastard kids. Like, hey, bastards. Like,
and Aegon's even said, like, I don't really want to rule. And Aemon doesn't really seem like Aemon just seems like he just wants to like kill things. That's really that's his interest.
Just like Daemon.
Yeah.
But Daemon mellowed out.
And Daemon didn't ever really want to be king either. He just wanted to be close to it, right? And be involved. But he wasn't like, I want to rule. I mean, that's kind of what the whole point with him and his, now dead wife was. He's like, I'm happy to just kind of chill here, right, be wealthy and not have the responsibility. And
that was the initial conflict between Daemon and Viserys. But like after that first episode, it went like Daemon was like, all right, like fine.
I think it was more of just like losing his station rather than like his opportunity to be king.
Right. Because at this point, it's been how many time jumps has it been since the beginning of the show?
Okay, so you had like a 9-year from the prologue, and
right, which was the council that they decided who the king was.
Yeah, and then you had about like I don't know, somewhere between like 4 to 5 years up to the like main time jump because you had that like 3 years in the Stepstones, then like 6 months here, 6 months there. So let's just say 5 years. So that's 14 years plus the 10-year time jump. So let's say 25 years total, and then another 6 years. So it's like 31 years since the prologue where Viserys was named. So basically Viserys was king for like 3 decades. And also they mentioned, his reign and Jaehaerys had no real wars. So it seems like for the average person actually hasn't been that bad of an existence. It's really just been a lot of annoyance within the court itself.
Which like the everyday people wouldn't see. So yeah, Viserys won, reigned from 103 AC to 129 AC. And the ACs started with Aegon the Conqueror, who came from Valyria to Westeros. So when AC is after the conquering. After the conquer, no, it's after the conquering because it's when Aegon came to Westeros.
But he leaves after the Doom, right?
Right, but the AC doesn't start until Aegon has taken over Westeros.
Oh, I see.
So it's after it's kind of like after the conquering of Aegon is when the timeline starts. Gotcha. So Viserys has been alive from 77 to 129. He became king in 103. He dies in one. Let's assume that let's assume he dies. And this episode of the show is taking place in 129 AC. So he's been king for 26 years.
Yeah,
almost 30 years. Pretty much. You were right on the money. Yeah. But we've seen how much of that time realistically have we seen? We've seen a couple years here and there, but nothing. I guess the most. Have we had 2 episodes yet that have been back to back chronological? I guess the 6th and the 7th episodes. Where they time jump super far and then Laena Velaryon dies from the dragon. Those 2 episodes, 6 and 7, are back to back chronological. I think
because it's the funeral takes place quite soon after she dies.
So I assume that episode 9 will be taking place essentially right after what we saw at the end of this episode.
Well, the good news is they can't age up Aemon's actor anymore, so I think he's set.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, they can't age up Aemon, they can't age up Aegon, like they can't age up anybody at this point. Like,
maybe the Rhaenyra's boys. I don't know. I really don't.
They
know.
don't. There's no way for them to time jump anymore, because if they time jump, actually, let me put it this way: if they were to time jump anymore, they would miss all of this conflict and they would move on to something else. If they jumped 2 years into the future, you would have a different king, a different group of a different king on the throne, even than ones you've seen now. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it's weird, like we jumped all the way to this point, and now if they jump any further, now they're stuck. They have to tell the story chronologically.
Yeah. So it seems like we both like the episode. We don't love. We just the function of the time jumps are.
My issue with this show is just the same it's been this whole time. It doesn't understand how to operate as a show mechanically. This is not The Crown. And if it were if it were The Crown, it would be the whole season would have been young Rhaenyra. You have 3 groups here of people that you have been time jumping forward. Rhaenyra herself got time jumped, and then her kids got time jumped. Like, this is just absurd. I think that this show has only up to go from here. I think you're right. I enjoyed this episode, but you know what? I would like to stay with some of these characters for more than an episode. Like, genuinely at this point, like, I'm not begging the showrunners, but I'm at the point where I'm like, you guys gotta slow down this fucking show's pace. And I know that now they essentially have to, because they've been trying to get to the whole. It would be like not going into how World War I happened, just going. And here's this, and this, and now we're at World War I. Like, they're not going into all of the machinations here.
Yeah, I mean, the death of Viserys will definitely be like the powder keg. So,
it is. It 100% is.
And as we said, if it didn't happen at the end of this episode, it's about to happen. So,
right, and like you mentioned, the Song of Fire and Ice is not mentioned in the book. The dagger is not mentioned in Fire and Blood. So that to me seems more like a connection to the original show than to the books. Does that make sense? Feels like
but I think
show thing, not a book thing.
But I think it helps us understand, I think, why Rhaenyra is fighting so hard for the succession to remain in place, because
that could be her excuse.
It could be her excuse, but whatever. She at least ostensibly thinks this is my family's duty to like protect the throne.
Yeah.
Although there's also part of the party that's like, why did the king just not sit down, Alicent and Rhaenyra, and be like, hey, I had this vision. Alicent, I know it may not be pleasant for you, but I think this is the best thing to do for the realm.
Because, when characters are in TV shows, they're not supposed to act like humans. They're supposed to act like dumb robots. I don't know. It's... There is some stuff in this narrative that has been strange and not the most successful to me. This idea that like all these people are fighting with one another and they could not get on the same page. I get it, but at the same time, in real life, we've seen people much more fractured get on the same page with one another.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of manufactured conflict.
Yes, it is, and the time jumps feel like a way of not misdirection, but I don't know what else you would call it. Like, look over here, we're doing some time jumps. Isn't it weird that they're getting old? Well, it's like there's very little actual storytelling going on here, at least in the aspect of character growth, character building, and character. I don't know. Like, it feels like they're just introducing characters and then aging them up. And it's like, I didn't know who they were before you aged them up. And now I really don't know who they are.
It's their means to an end.
Right. Like we had to get to the point where Viserys dies. Like that's made very clear to us now with this show, right? Like this first season is driving to that moment. I didn't think we were going to be 8 episodes in before it happened, man. Holy cow.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I think you have 2 things you have to execute on. If you're really just going to focus on the spectacle, the battles and shit have to be amazing. I mean, we need dragons, right? And we saw that.
You're going to get that. I'll tell you that much.
Daemon found a few more eggs. And the other thing is, if you want to make us really care about these characters, like we're going to have to spend, especially with the kids, we're going to have to spend more time with them because I really don't. I just know that Aemon and Aegon suck. I know Rhaenyra's kids seem okay, but I just don't know much about them.
Right. And ultimately with this narrative being kind of as far reaching as it is, you can't rush. And I don't know why they're rushing, because you have how many seasons of this show to tell? Like how many? You know, like how many seasons of this show do they not think that they're gonna get? Because there's a lot of rushing going on here. Like it's weird. It's weird to me that this season nothing that they've told us in this season warranted slowing down for. You know what I mean? It's slowing down is now, like finally, with him dying, with Viserys dying. Like nothing else happened up until this point that anyone could have been like, we need to slow down.
I mean, yeah, basically from Daemon and Rhaenyra getting married, which is probably huge, the implications, like we don't see the king's reaction, we don't see Alicent's reaction, and just like
I guess they're all cool with it. I guess like that feels like it would be a thing that people would be rather not cool with, because they do go into the book. In the book, they go into like the way the world reacts to some of the Targaryens getting married. There's like a whole thing about the religious aspect of it in King's Landing, not liking, not in this, not Rhaenyra and Daemon, but in another. There's another Targaryen and his, I think it was actually Jaehaerys, the father of Viserys, or not the father of Viserys, but I guess the uncle of Viserys. Yeah. He married his sister, and like the entire realm was like, not the entire realm, but like a portion of the realm was not happy with that, even though he was seen as like a very good king in the long run. Even the realm had problems with him marrying his sister. So
Alicent does it with she kind of talks about the Targaryens' queer customs, but she married her kids off.
Yeah, because they're so paranoid, because they don't want to marry anybody else. Like I don't know. I get it, but I don't.
Yeah, we can't evaluate it by like our moral or what. It's like it's a completely different thing. But I think even within the context of that world, it's a bit unusual, but I guess not out of the realm of possibility based on how Targaryens have been historically. But yeah, I think the next few episodes are probably going to ramp up, and I'm still not sure. Is it just the kids really pushing, or is Alicent going to kind of react to the last thing she heard from Viserys, despite him like just a couple hours before saying, "Hey, let's chill out, and we have a plan. Let's follow the plan."
Well, and and for me, I think that's where I am as well. It's like I want to know why these things are happening, and I want to know for what reason is the show going to give us for why this is all happening. Because what's about to happen is like we talk about the White Walkers, right, from the first season of the first iteration of the show, and how terrible they are.
Yeah. You mean
the White Walkers, like how terrible they are for the realm. Like you're about to have characters fighting on dragons and burning things and killing people who are caught in the middle of it. Like
that's war.
This is about to be war on a scale that I don't think we've ever seen in this show. And I'm really excited for it. But I feel like this first season was like a sacrificial offering to get to that point. Maybe the second season of the show is going to be like the greatest episodes of Game of Thrones we've ever seen, the highest production value, the most interesting characters, maybe. But it feels kind of like a shame that this first season is so all over the place. Because like you said, I liked this episode. I just don't like that it opens with another time jump and we're told to care about the characters, not given a reason to. Don't tell me, give me a reason. And that's show don't tell. Yeah.
Well, and the difference between this and season 8, there's a key distinction. So the difference is Game of Thrones didn't really have like huge time skips. It was just like characters would literally change their motives within days, right? Or even hours. Whereas this, there's enough time to say, okay, I could understand within those years a character could significantly change, but we just don't see it. So you get a similar impact, but like we know something happens. We just kind of have to fill in the gaps ourselves. And that's a bit frustrating when you have to do it over and over and over.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the show is going to do some of the things from the book that the book did, but you're about to have a very long amount of time with a lot of battles and fighting. I mean, to the point where it's like the list is just this long. And I wasn't kidding. The War of the Dragons, the Dying of the Dragons, as it's called in the book, this War of Succession goes from 129 AC to 131. That's 2 years. It's 2 years, and we've already jumped 30 in this show. Like, that to me is just wild. Wild. Absolutely wild. So onward and upward, I guess, to the penultimate episode of this season, the Green Council. Yeah, all right. We'll see. I don't know. You don't watch those After the Throne things, do you?
I do usually. I didn't this week.
Yeah, the trailer for next episode definitely spoiled some stuff. And then the After the Throne stuff was pretty good. Hey, Vaemon Valerian, dude. The MVP of the episode.
I mean, top five.
What a top fucking clown.
Yeah.
There are a few deaths in this show that have been as good as that one. That was a great, just like out of nowhere, man.
I think we were all kind of just like,
something has to happen.
Something bad has to happen. I did think Viserys was just going to have kind of out of his tongue, but I was like, nope, I'll take what Daemon did.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised that they contained themselves and didn't do the whoosh, and then just see his like slide off. Like, I was like, man, they really contained themselves, because that's like gift wrapped, because he doesn't cut his head up and down. He cuts it kind of at an angle,
diagonally.
Yeah.
And we see them prepare the body to take back to Driftmark for his burial.
Pretty gross.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I think it's interesting that this show is really keeping the violence still, like every episode still been a fair amount of violence. Like, it's a violent show in a lot of ways. It's also like makes sense that it's a violent show, because the Targaryens are so wild and insane and kind of all over the place. But Father Malone really did say it best in the last episode. It's like watching Hitler and Mussolini fight. Like, these are terrible people. Like, we should realistically not be rooting for any of them, because they're all varying shades of shit. So
sorry, bro. I'm Team Rhaenyra.
Because this narrative is presenting her as such. Maegor the Cruel was one of the kings before Jaehaerys. I think he was the king before Jaehaerys. And Rhaenyra in the books is referred to as Maegor the Cruel with teats. So,
oh, jeez.
So, do you see what I mean? Like, they've made her in the show, I think Emma Darcy really coming into her own in this show, finally, third episode of her in this show. But they've made her a lot more likable than I think she is really intended to be in the source material. But she's great. Yeah. She's great, right?
She's great.
I think everybody on the show is good. I think, right? Like, I think I don't know. I think we're at the point now where, like, we've seen enough of everybody to make like a judgment call.
The kids are stuff to wait on, but
yeah, I'm bummed. Well, I think other than them, I'm bummed Paddy Considine is off the show now.
He could come back as a Force ghost.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad that he was on the show for as long as he was, but at some point it was like they weren't using him very much. He was just like a gag. Like, in this episode, he's kind of a gag, right? Like,
it was like, yeah, it's like funny, tragic, sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at him. He's a ghoul and he's falling apart. Isn't that gross? It's like, yeah, it is. Fucking disgusting, frankly. But yeah, no, I'm excited for the next episode. You've been watching Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah.
Since I've talked more about this show on the Lord of the Rings show, but I wanted to ask you, are they, I mean, again, I think it's kind of an inevitable comparison, given that they're both on at the same time. I don't think that's going to happen the next time the shows come back for their second seasons. But
yeah,
like right now, it's kind of inevitable that we're going to compare them. Like, which show are you enjoying more? I'm just curious, because we haven't even talked about it. I didn't even know you were watching Lord of the Rings until we were talking before we started recording.
I think I'm probably enjoying House of the Dragon more, but I think you could argue that Lord of the Rings doesn't have the same character problems.
No, I would say it has different character problems. Like not well, I would maybe it has the same, just not give like my issue with the Lord of the Rings show is they just haven't given us enough of a reason to care about some of these characters.
Yeah, I do actually care about all the main characters. Anything with the Harfoots, I really don't care about. Anything.
Oh man, okay. Anything with the Numenorians, I do not care about.
I would say for me, I put the Elrond story is like the best one.
Yes,
him with the dwarves.
Yeah,
it's like that one is like very good. I think the stuff with I can never remember his name. The Puerto Rican elf.
Arondir.
Puerto
Rican elf, and the Iranian Middle Earth woman.
yeah.
That's why I was expecting you to state that storyline.
Yeah. Oh,
I like the one with the Iranian character in it. Yeah. Oh, I bet you do.
No, I do like that storyline. The Numenor piece with Galadriel, like
Galadriel's stuff is like the least exciting stuff in the show.
It's hit or miss. It's hit or miss for me.
Most recent episode, pretty big hit though. I felt like.
I liked her interactions with Theo. I do feel like not much happened in the episode. And then anything with the Harfoots and the Stranger, like now it does seem to be picking up with those weird ladies. You could have not shown the Harfoots at all, really, and maybe in an episode and gotten to the same exact place we're at now. Like I don't really care much about them, but maybe I'm just a heartless monster.
I think that they've given you enough in the show to satiate what you want that adding stuff for other people is not that big of a deal. Does that make sense? The show has clearly checked some boxes for you. So like, it's just additional stuff that you don't care about. Yeah. It's not like it's not doing enough for you to watch it. I'm with you. I mean, for me, like I think I might prefer that show a little bit more to this one, but that's only, and I will tell you why. It's only because we've never seen that time in that world. And this time in this world feels very much like what we've seen, right? It's like Succession, the TV show in Westeros.
Yeah, Westeros. Yeah, I think I just enjoy, because it's such like a heavily dialogue focused show. Like I think I just enjoy the conversations more.
Yeah, I will agree with you on that.
Than in Lord of the Rings. I mean, Lord of the Rings has actually had more action set pieces, which have been kind of cool.
Yeah.
I guess I'm still not 100% sure on like where the end game of Lord of the Rings is, whereas I kind of know where the House of the Dragon is going, and maybe that's why. But I think they're both pretty good shows in their own ways. Neither of them are the perfect, but it's the first season for both. And to be fair, House of the Dragon has a little bit more to lean on than the Lord of the Rings show does.
Well, I mean, it depends on how you view the situation, right?
As far as like it being a TV show and
yeah. It's already done this before. Like Lord of the Rings, this is a new endeavor for the folks over there at Amazon Studios to bring Lord of the Rings to the small screen.
Yeah. And it's been so long. I mean, even the Hobbit movies, it's been, several years since those were in theaters. So it's like, it's been a while since they've done anything Lord of the Rings focused, whereas like it hasn't been that long since we had Game of Thrones on the small screen.
No, I mean, that's 2 years? 3 years?
18, 19. I don't know. COVID doesn't count. So like 1 year, really.
2 years if we're counting.
Yeah.
Theoretically. Yeah. I think I like Lord of the Rings more, but House of the Dragon I'm excited to watch both shows every week, and I don't get excited about anything like that. Like I don't watch new TV. I just don't do it. So doing these two shows and like getting excited about them was different for me. So I appreciate that. Yeah. They both have similar problems. This show, I think, just like this show has really used that time jumping as a crutch. And I think by the end of the season, everybody's going to have that same conclusion. Maybe these next 2 episodes are chronological, but you've had so much at this point. Like, okay, so you stopped doing it in the last 2 episodes. You did it 8 other times. Like, yeah. So until then, Yashar, I would ask you where people could find you on the internet, but you're trying to keep a low profile.
Yeah, because that lady's birds are watching. Damon's girl's watching. She's out
Massaria.
Massaria's out here in the streets.
Your favorite actress in the whole show.
Yes. Okay. Remember we said every actor is good. She's not good.
Wow. I'm taking this opportunity to drag this one actress.
I'm sorry. I'm sure she's really nice, and maybe she's even not a bad actress holistically, but she has not been
on this show.
No. But it seems like they're doing something with her. They're planning something with her. So.
Yeah, well, now it does. Previously on Game of Thrones, this one character that we've seen 2 other times finally matters.
Yeah. Remember Daemon was like banging this chick, and I was like, oh yeah, he was.
Yeah,
before he murdered his wife
for like a while. Yeah. As for me, you can find me at weirdingwaymedia.com, which is the site for all the podcasts that I work on, along with a whole bunch of other ones, 19 shows and counting, and adding new ones every day. So that's where you can go to find more about me. As for this show, gameofbros.com, Game of Bros on all social media. Just like, rate, and review on iTunes. That's all you got to do. That's all you need to do. Social media sucks. I know it. You know it. That's why so many of us don't even use it anymore. As for Yashar and I, we'll catch you on the penultimate episode of the first season of House of the Dragon.